Hi everybody, this video is a bit of an unusual one. It's basically to give a little bit of context to the beginning of my Walt Disney World 2016 vlog series. So this trip was going to be something slightly different. I decided to keep it a secret because I only booked it 7 weeks in advance, and I thought it would be kind of fun to keep it quiet on all my social media, and then on the day I was going make a big announcement, drop lots of hints on Twitter, and then as I was going upload my planning video which showed week by week what I'd been doing in the 7 weeks since I booked the trip. So everything went to plan. I booked it, I didn't tell anybody. I was making weekly videos to put together into one video where I was showing making fast passes, getting all my documentation, keeping you guys updated and showing what I packed. On the Monday night before I went, I made my final part of the video, which was the big announcement, the big, hey, surprise, I'm going to Disney World, and as you're watching this, I'm waiting to board the plane. And I edited it, rendered it, and that was it, it was ready to go. The rest of the week was pretty hectic because I just got back from Disneyland Paris on the Sunday. I had all of the unpacking from that to do. I had to finish my packing. I volunteer on a Thursday night, so I wasn't in on the Thursday night. So I had very little planning time for the rest of the week. Now, by the weekend before, I had known that Hurricane Matthew was on a course across the Atlantic. At the time, during the weekend, they were saying that it probably wasn't even going to go near the eastern coast of the US. It was going to divert up northwards before it even got that close. So by the weekend before, I really didn't think anything of it. 1st of June to the 1st of November is hurricane season in Florida, and if you are booking a holiday, you need to be aware of that. It rains a lot, you get strong winds, and you may get hurricanes. When I lived there, we had a hurricane right at the beginning of September, so I have actually been through a hurricane, and actually Floyd was very similar to Matthew in that it was predicted to make direct landfall with Central Florida. So they closed the parks, and we all had to basically hunker down for 24 hours, stay in our apartments. So it was very, very similar situation. So I've seen firsthand the effect that hurricanes can have on Central Florida and life and the parks and everything like that. So I was prepared for that and I knew that. But what happened was, the beginning of the week they were saying, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. On the Tuesday night after I'd made my video, I contacted Virgin and I said, look, I know what hurricanes are like, I know they're unpredictable, I know that you can't say with any certainty what's going to happen, but I just want to check that my flights are all going to be unaffected by what's happening at the moment. And the response I got back was, yeah, don't worry about it. I was still concerned because as the week went on, it became obvious that the hurricane had shifted course and it was going to be heading straight for Florida. And by probably the Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, they were predicting direct landfall. It was a Category 5 hurricane, which is the strongest possible hurricane you can get. And a Category 5 hurricane is basically expect complete devastation. Houses will be flattened, there will be widespread damage to infrastructures, no power, no water, things like that. So this is a serious hurricane. So on the Thursday morning, I contacted Virgin and I said, can I just check? I want to make sure, because I was checking on the website on Virgin Atlantic on the status of the flight, and it was saying, yeah, the flight is on time. And they said, yep, no, don't worry, at the moment your flight is unaffected. As the day went on Thursday, flights started getting cancelled. And they made an announcement that as of, I think it was 8 PM on the Thursday night, Orlando International Airport was going to close. This makes sense. Hurricanes coming, you don't want planes moving around, and obviously they have to move all of the equipment and all of that sort of stuff out of the way, so it's not going to get damaged, it's going to cause minimal damage. So they had to prepare for that. So I knew at that point there was going to be a big impact on flights, because as soon as you close an airport, there are planes in the wrong place, there are planes where they shouldn't be, they can't get people where they need to. I was checking on Virgin Atlantic, and slowly and gradually throughout the day more and more flights were getting cancelled, or as they were calling them delayed. The flight had been delayed, they were delaying it 24 hours, which in my mind means basically you're cancelling that day's flight and you're just moving everybody on to the next flight. So this had a knock-on effect. So everybody that was supposed to fly home on Thursday night couldn't fly. Everybody that was supposed to be flying on Friday couldn't fly. and that went both ways. You couldn't go either to or from Florida on the Friday. And actually, if you check out Crispy S'mores vlogs, which they're uploading at the moment, they were actually caught in Hurricane Matthew. They were supposed to be flying home, I think, on the Friday, and they got delayed until the Sunday because their flights were cancelled. They had to be put up in their hotel for a little bit longer. So you can see the other end of what happens when hurricanes hit in their vlogs. So by Friday morning, I woke up and I could see that every other flight on the Saturday, which was the day I was flying, had been either cancelled, the 2 homebound flights from Orlando to Gatwick had been cancelled, or delayed for 24 hours. So the 2 flights on the Saturday had been delayed until the Sunday. The Manchester and the Glasgow flight, as well as the earlier Gatwick flight, had all been delayed until the Sunday. The flights from the Friday that were supposed to go on Friday had been delayed until the Saturday. So basically the planes that were going on the Saturday were taking the passengers from Friday, which makes sense because they're trying to clear the backlog. Now, I'm an anxious traveller. I am not happy until I'm sat in the hotel room on my bed. I've flown, I've arrived, I've got through immigration, I've got my hire car, I've got to the hotel and I've checked in. At that point, then I feel like I'm on holiday, I can relax and I'm happy. I get very, very anxious about everything else in the meantime, from leaving the house to getting to the hotel, going completely wrong. So this was not a good time for me. Work at the moment is really, really busy. So doing things like online check-in and stuff at work have been tricky. Luckily my boss is an amazing boss, he's really, really nice, and he was quite happy with me taking 2 minutes out at 11 o'clock in the morning to book my fast passes because I'm working through lunch at the moment. I'm staying late 3 hours a night. So he was okay with that. So it came round to Friday morning and I'm at work, and every 30 seconds I'm refreshing Virgin Atlantic flight status website to check that my flight was flying. And by mid-morning on Friday, my flight was the only flight on Saturday that was flying on time as scheduled. Everything else had either been cancelled or delayed for 24 hours. So I was sitting there and I was convinced that it was going to get delayed. I couldn't see any way that this flight was going to go as planned, but it got to the 24 hours before check-in, and check-in opened. So within a couple of minutes, the check-in opened at 1 o'clock. By about 1:05, I checked in, chosen my seat, and I had my boarding pass. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, this is looking good now. I'm checked in, so the flight seems to be okay. Still though, every couple of minutes I'm hitting refresh on the flight status on the website just to see, and it kept saying, no, the flight is on time, the flight is on time, the flight is on time. All night I was checking. I didn't get any sleep whatsoever because I was just so nervous. Virgin had said that they would email and text if there were any changes to the flight, so I was just constantly checking every 10 seconds, just no, 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 going on the website, checking the status, going on the Foreign Office website to see about travel, all of that sort of stuff. So I go to bed on the Friday night, and it was a little bit of a damp squib for me because part of the excitement of going on holiday is the build-up and getting really excited about it. And I left work on Friday night, and normally I'd be like, yeah, I'm going on holiday. And I didn't. I got out of the car and I was walking back to my front door and I was thinking, I should not feel like this. I felt sick, worried, anxious, and I couldn't even think about the possibility of going on holiday because I couldn't see, with all the other delays and cancellations that were going on, how my plane could actually fly. So I went to sleep on Friday night, and I think I probably got about 4 hours sleep. And I woke up about 5:30 and my alarm was set for 7. So I was just lying in bed and I was on Facebook and Twitter and watching YouTube videos and stuff and trying to pass the time until my alarm went off. And I'm checking the flight status and it's saying, no, the flight is on time, the flight is on time. So by the time it got to about 6:30, I'm thinking, okay, alright, flight's on time. So it looks like I'm going to the airport. I was supposed to get up at 7, have a shower, put my last bits in my suitcase, and we were going to leave at 8. At 7:10, I got a text on my phone. So I leapt out of bed like it had just exploded and ran into the living room, and the text said, due to the misalignment of the fleet, makes sense, I knew that was coming, we are having to send a smaller aircraft. Please call this number, with the number, to make alternative travel arrangements. So at that point, being the kind of person that I am, which is extremely pessimistic. That was it. Holiday was over, wasn't going. I was only going for a week. To rebook wasn't going to be possible because it was now the Saturday. I couldn't say to my boss, is it alright if I fly on the Monday and come back on the Monday and miss 2 days extra of work? Couldn't do any of that. So I called the number, and I called the number pretty much within 30 seconds of the text message coming through, and by 7 o'clock I was speaking to somebody at Virgin. The lady I spoke to was very, very nice, but had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. She went off, put me on hold again, and when she came back she said, no, the flight's on time. And I said, well, I understand the flight is on time, but what the message said was it's going to be a smaller aircraft, so I needed to ring up and confirm. And she went, oh, well, you've booked through Virgin Holidays, so maybe you should call them. So I called Virgin Holidays, bearing in mind it's now 7:05 in the morning. And the very nice voicemail message at Virgin Holidays says, thank you for calling Virgin Holidays, we are open between 9 and 5. So I'm starting to get a little wound up by this point. I'm in tears. I need an answer. I need to know what's happening. Completely devastated that my holiday that I was so excited about, that I was going to make this big announcement about, wasn't going to happen. So I called back Virgin Atlantic, and this time I was on hold for 25 minutes, and I can't even describe what that was like. It was the worst thing ever. I alternated from floods of tears to anger to frustration to I can't even, it was a whole whirlwind of emotions. You know, I was thinking, she cut me off, well, she didn't cut me off, she fobbed me off, now I've called back, I've been on hold for 20 minutes, everyone else on the flight now is calling up, they're getting seats on the new plane, by the time I get through there aren't going to be any seats left, and, you know, just imagining every possible scenario. So about 7:35 I get through to a very lovely guy who has no idea what I'm talking about. So he goes away and speaks to the ticketing office, and he comes back and says, no, it's fine, you're confirmed, you're on the flight. I said, okay, do I get a new boarding pass? Because obviously different plane, different sizes, I'm not going to have the same seat. And he went, no, your boarding pass is valid, it's fine, you've got one. So I was like, okay, do I get a new reference number to confirm the new flight? No, your existing reference number counts. So I actually said to him, I said, I'm really sorry, but it's not like I don't believe you, but how can that be the case if everything has changed? And at this point he got a little bit shirty and he went, look, I'm telling you, you're on the flight. So, because I didn't have anything in writing, and they had no idea what was going on, clearly Virgin Atlantic had sent out the text to all the passengers without informing the call centre what was going to be happening, so they had absolutely no idea what was going on. So rather than getting up and doing a really happy, yay, I'm going to Disney today, start to my vlog, I felt sick. I just wanted to get to the airport, I wanted to get there as quick as I can. And at this point, of course, I was supposed to get up at 7, have a shower and leave at 8, and it was now 7:45, and it was even more urgent that we left to get to the airport as soon as possible. So I jumped in the shower, literally chucked everything in my bag, and off we went. We left about 5 to 8 and got to Gatwick just before 9:15. So I went absolutely bombing it up into the bag drop area and just, you know, ran straight in. And again, of course, this is why the vlogs at the beginning are a bit disjointed, a bit rushed, and there's not much of me talking because I was so scared that I wasn't going to get on the flight that I didn't want to hype myself up thinking that I was going to go on, because I was still thinking, well, there isn't really much point in me vlogging a lot because in half an hour I might be in the car on the way home. So I filmed a little bit, but my heart wasn't in it at all, and you will see from the vlogs, and this is why I'm doing this video, so you understand why the content of the video is slightly different at the beginning to what it is when I get on the plane. So I get to Gatwick and I run to the bag drop and I go up to the desk and I've got my boarding pass and my passport, and I go, hello, I'm here to drop my bag off. And she said, where are you going? And I said, Orlando. So she looks at me, she goes, which flight? So I told her which flight I was on, and she went, yeah, we can't process anybody on that flight for the minute, you're just going to have to wait 10 minutes. So I kind of looked around, and if you've ever been there you'll know it's a big open area. You've got the EasyJet desks on one side and you've got Virgin desks on the other side, and there's just a big space in between. So I kind of moved a little bit back from the desk, And there was a big group of people in the middle that weren't really anywhere near the desks, and there was a couple of Virgin people there with a podium and stuff by the check-in machines. And I spotted an older couple with their grown-up daughters who stood just off to the side of the desks, and I could clearly tell they were going to Disney because they had Disney t-shirts and Disney bags on, so I thought, right, I'm going to go and talk to them. So I sort of sidled up to them and I went, hello, you on the Orlando flight? And they went, yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? So we started exchanging stories. So they checked in the day before, they had their boarding passes, and they'd rung Virgin when they got the text, and Virgin had told them that it was 140 people had to be bumped off the flight, and it was first come, first served, so they should get to the airport as quick as they could. So they'd got there about 15 minutes before I had. Now, if what they had been told was true and it was first come, first served, then really Virgin should have set up a queuing area so that as people arrived, they were going into the queue, so there was no question of who arrived first. But we'd both been told 10 minutes, so we stood and waited, and they went back up after 10 minutes, came back, no, 10 minutes more. So we waited another 10 minutes, and I'm stood there chatting with the family, and this time the dad goes up and he comes back and, no, they said between half an hour and an hour. So things are starting to get a little bit fraught, but also everybody else for the flight is turning up. Now they're all waiting slightly further back than us. We kind of looked like we were in the queue, but we kept telling people to go round us. So I think we played that quite well, actually. We were about 3 or 4 metres back from the check-in desk, but we weren't out of the check-in area. So we did kind of look like a queue, and I think that played to our advantage because everybody else was still a good 3 or 4 metres behind us. The information that we gathered by then was that the plane was coming from Heathrow, so they had to fly it from Heathrow to Gatwick. Now, I live 15 minutes from Heathrow, so that was a little bit annoying, but also because they'd known so early in the morning, rather than texting everybody and say, ring this number, or as well as saying ring this number, they could have told everybody to go to Heathrow, because at that time in the morning they would have had time and it would have saved all of that effort. Everybody could have just gone to Heathrow instead. But anyway, so they had to fly the plane from Heathrow to Gatwick. We're watching people from the Friday flight check in, and we're hearing their stories, you know, we've been bumped from the bubble down to the back of the plane, and I was thinking, who cares, you're on the plane. They're all going through, and then I was thinking, if they overbooked that Friday flight, are they now filling those overbooked people onto our plane before they start booking us in, so they know how many seats they've got left? And we actually asked that, and the Virgin rep said, no, that's not the case. Anybody that's booked for Friday is flying on the other plane. The only people that are going to be on your plane are going to be people from your flight. So we waited, and tension's getting high, and I can't even describe what I felt. I was shaking, I was cold and sweaty, and just, it was horrible, and nobody was telling us anything. There were Virgin people walking around, and they just kept coming up to us and going, what flight are you on? And we were saying Orlando, and they were just all going, oh, okay. No sort of, okay, we'll see you in a minute, or this is what's happening. It was just all a bit of a sympathetic, okay, never mind, type attitude. Virgin reps started walking around the crowd that was behind us, that was clearly everybody else for our flight, trying to get people to move to different flights. They were offering £400 compensation, and they were offering a flight on the Sunday from Glasgow. Now, I knew it was a possibility I might get bumped to the Sunday. I was upset about that because I was only going for a week. If I'd have been going for 3 weeks, yeah, okay, it would have been annoying, but I wouldn't have missed out on a massive chunk of my holiday. So I really didn't want to go on the Sunday, and I really didn't want to have to go to Glasgow. So I was, luckily they didn't come and ask me, because I would have told them what to do with that. But of course nobody wants to get bumped off a flight, especially when you got to go to Glasgow and all you're getting for it is £400 compensation, which is probably not even half of what you paid for the flight anyway. So we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and then all of a sudden, out the corner of my eye, I see 3 Virgin ladies purposely marching, radios and clipboards in hand, straight up to the 4 check-in desks right in front of us. And we were so lucky, because that stretch of check-in desks is massive, and they could have gone up to the other end and we would have completely missed it. But as luck would have it, they went to the 4 check-in desks right in front of us. And as they got level with us, one of them went, right ladies, what we're going to do is these 4 desks here. So of course at this point everybody realises what's happening, and there's a massive surge of people. The family that I'm with went to the desk right in front of us, which was empty, and the dad, bless him, shoved me into the queue for the desk next to them, because there was a couple being dealt with at that time, and he just kind of manoeuvred me in there before anybody could get there, before I'd even really realised what was happening. And I was in a queue, so things were starting to happen now. And the family next to me, he's getting out his paper boarding passes. I've still got a couple in front of me who are just putting their bags on and doing the final things before I can get to my check-in girl. And so of course I'm watching what's happening to the left of me, because I'm thinking what's happening, what they're going to tell them. And they hand over their paper boarding passes, and the girl goes, oh sorry, yeah, it's a new plane, so everybody's going to need to be reassigned seats, so you're going to need to go over to the ticketing desk to get new boarding passes before I can process and check you in. So they get sent away, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't handle this. I can't now go over to the ticket desk to queue with everybody else to then be told, no, I can't. So I get to the check-in desk and she's saying, which flight are you on? So I told her. She said, do you have a boarding pass? So I handed over my phone, and at this point I'm thinking, please don't send me away, please don't send me away, please don't send me away. And I was ready to be sick right there all over the check-in desk. She scanned it and she went, oh, you need a new boarding pass. And I was thinking, no. She went, let me just print that for you. And at that point, I'm getting emotional just talking about it now. At that point, I just burst into tears, and yeah, I just absolutely burst into tears. And she sort of put it into my passport. No, before that, she circled it and she said, right, the flight's leaving at 1 o'clock, it's leaving at gate 81. And she's circling all these things on the boarding pass, and at that point, I can't hear anything. All I can just hear is her going, let me just print your boarding pass for you. And I was in tears, so she puts it in my passport and she hands it to me and she says, are you okay? And I said, am I on the plane? And she just sort of looked at me and went, yeah, you're fine, you're on the plane. And that was it. I was beside myself with happiness. Just talking about it now is making me really emotional. Because I was convinced by that point that there was no way I was going to get on that plane. So I went upstairs and I called my boyfriend, and because he was going to have to come back and get me if I wasn't going to be able to fly. By this time he'd already got home, and was in tears. I'm on the plane, I'm going through, I can't believe it, you know, just for like 20 minutes. Went through security and I called my mum, because I'd been messaging my mum as well. My poor old mum was having kittens at home, just thinking of what's going on. Called my mum, sobbing, I'm on the plane. I had no idea where my seat was. Didn't care. It was on the plane. That's all I needed to know. You know, my mum was asking me sensible questions like, is it an aisle seat, is it a window seat, is it the back of the plane? What happened to the other people that you were talking to at check-in? And I was like, I don't know, I honestly don't know, but I'm getting on the plane. And at that point, that is where my vlogs kind of pick up, and you'll see what happens after that point. There's a few little wobbles in between, but that's the main reason why the beginning of the vlog is a bit short, and there's not much from me, and the bits you do see me, I'm looking a little bit harangued, and that is why, to be honest. And actually right up until the point that I'm sat on the plane, I didn't actually believe that I was going to be going on that flight. I thought something was going to happen, that they were going to cancel the flight, or, you know, it wasn't going to be able to get into the airport at Orlando, so it was going to be delayed or something. Until we were there on the plane, I didn't believe it. And so that first day was a bit of an emotional roller coaster. That first sort of six hours from waking up and getting that text message until I actually took off was just horrific. So hopefully you'll understand a little bit around why the vlogs are the way they are. And I also wanted to talk about the way that the airline handled it as well, because I don't actually think they did it particularly well. I would have been much happier. Well, first of all, if you're going to send out a text message to all your customers telling them to call your customer call centre, it's a good idea to tell your call centre handlers that people are going to be ringing up about this text message and what it says and what it means and what they need to do for people. Because speaking to everybody else that was on that flight, everybody got told different things. Nobody knew what was happening. They had, you know, it was terrible. There was no information when you get to the airport. There was no separate area for people for the flight. There was nobody giving out information or even saying, yep, okay, this is happening, that's happening, or this is happening at the moment, and when it gets to this time we'll be able to give you more information. It was horrible. It was really, really bad. As it was, the plane was fine, the flight was fine, I had a really good seat, you see. But that whole build-up was just handled really, really badly. And I can only imagine the people that actually got postponed, I dread to think what they were treated like, because if people who were on a flight that actually went were treated like that, you know, and I love Virgin. I think they're far better than any other airline that I've ever flown with, and I will continue to fly Virgin, mainly because of the air miles, and my next flight is free. But I do think that they do provide a better service for the most part on flight. The planes are good, food is normally okay, but the pre-service, the build-up and the kind of crisis management, Virgin, if you're watching, that's something you need to work on, because it was not good at all. So what it transpired had happened after I had calmed down and finally found out what had happened. I was really lucky that my boss let me check in while I was at work, because if he'd have said, you can't do that, you need to wait till you get home, I probably wouldn't have been on that flight. Virgin opened the check-in and people were checking in online 24 hours in advance, and then they realised that they weren't going to be able to take everybody on the flight, so they closed the online check-in. So they removed the ability for anybody further to check in until they got to the airport. Now, what that meant was, anybody that had checked in online, they'd stopped at a point before they'd filled the smaller plane, so they knew they still had seats left. Everybody who had checked in online was guaranteed a seat on the plane because they'd already checked in online and they'd done it and that was fine, and they still had seats left. Everybody else, they needed to process at the airport to see how many people were in the group, you know, all that sort of stuff. If that had been communicated, that would have been fine by me. They could have just told me, do you know what, online check-in is now closed. Anybody who's currently checked in online, please go to the airport as usual. Everybody else, you'll need to wait until tomorrow to check in before you find out whether you're on the flight or not. Okay, that's horrible for everybody else, but you would have saved a whole lot of stress for everybody else that had already checked in online. You know, or they could have even, everybody that had checked in online, we didn't even need to know about the fact that there was an aircraft change until we got to the airport, because as far as Virgin had decided, we were already on the flight, so we didn't really need to know that. They could have just sent me a text saying, it's going to be a smaller plane, you're going to have a different seat. Perfect. That's all I needed to know. They didn't need to send everybody the same message. They should have, you know, okay, I know it's not as easy as saying that when you're working with customers and all those automated contact systems and weeding out who's doing this and who's doing that. Maybe that is a bit unrealistic, but in an ideal world, everybody that checked in that they had decided was on the flight could have had one message, the flight's changed, you'll be sitting somewhere else, we'll sort it out when you get to the airport, and another message for everyone else, you haven't checked in yet, it's a smaller plane, you might not get on the plane. That would work so much better, but as it was, I was lucky. I checked in early. I don't know what time they closed the check-in. There was a guy just behind me who was talking to a Virgin lady, and she said, have you checked in online? And he said, no, we went to do it last night, but the online check-in was closed, so we couldn't, so we've come here to check in. And she said, okay, well, you're going to need to wait. Because what they had to do was process everybody that had checked in, so they knew what space was left. As it was a complete free-for-all on the plane. Nobody was sat, no parties were together. I mean, I was by myself, so I was going to be sat in a seat by myself anyway. So next to me on one side was a teenage son. His mum and dad were 2 rows in front on the left-hand side. To my right-hand side was a girl who was supposed to be in first class. Her dad was in first class. Her mum had got bumped to premium economy. She'd got bumped to economy. Next to her was an 11-year-old boy whose mum and 6-year-old sister were the row in front across the aisle. His grandparents were 2 seats back behind. There was a girl in the window seat to the left of me who was sat next to an older gentleman. She asked him if he was travelling with a group, and he said yes, but they're all over the place. And she said, well, my boyfriend's just 5 rows down there, would you mind swapping with him so we can sit together? So they literally had not put anybody together at all. They just bunged everybody in seats, bam, 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 bam. But I think judging by everybody's responses, by the time they got on the plane, everybody else was just feeling the same as me. I don't care where my seat is. If it's on this plane and this plane is going to Orlando, I'm not going to complain whatsoever. And actually, it's probably one of the best flights I've ever had. You know, it went really quickly. I watched 4 films and left on time, landed on time, and really good. We got to the gate and just walked straight on the plane. No sitting, waiting for your rows to be called. They just wanted everybody on and gone and bam, done with it. Probably because they didn't want us sitting around at the gate moaning at them, I would imagine. But yeah, so that's what happens when hurricanes hit Orlando and things get shut down and things get moved around. So if you haven't travelled and you're due to travel, then be prepared. If you're over there, then you could get stuck. That's the truth of it. But as my boss said, he said, well, what are you going to do if, you know, because there was a hurricane, Nicole was coming up behind Matthew, and he said, what are you going to do if Nicole comes up and follows on behind you and you get stuck when you're over there? I had to try really hard not to be flippant, because in my head I was going, I don't care. If I get stuck in Florida, happy days. Obviously, if it had happened, I would have probably been extremely stressed out and quite anxious about it. But I'd much rather be stuck over there than be stuck here and not be able to get over there. So, yeah. Hurricanes happen. Hurricanes affect your holiday. And if you're not there and the hurricane hits, then it's going to be stressful. And if you're a vlogger and hurricanes hit, then things might not go to plan. And you might find yourself doing one of these. So, yeah, that's my update. That's what happened. That is why my big announcement didn't go quite as it was, because I didn't want to announce it too much, because even when I was checked in at the airport with my boarding pass in the departure lounge, I still felt that if I was going, yay, I'm going to Disney World, yay, I'm going, that something would happen to jinx it, and I didn't want to jinx it. Because at that point it had been so horrible, I honestly didn't think I could cope. So that's why it was more of a whimper than a bang. But hopefully you will enjoy the vlogs. Once I get there, I'm absolutely fine, and I do from rope drop till park close pretty much every day. I completely crippled my feet. They're still covered in marks and blisters, and even I've been back 2 weeks today. So wear sensible shoes. And it was incredible. It was really, really good. I never ever considered going for a week before. It does make it more expensive, because obviously the flight is the most expensive part, so to get your money's worth you need to go for as long as you can. But if you can only go for a week, do it. I will again. If that's the only option open to me, I would go for a week again. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so hopefully the vlogs that are going to follow on will be really enjoyable, and yeah, just enjoy. They'll be following after this, so here you go.